Well, happy Saturday, everyone. Happy Saturday. This is Robert Bryant back with another Saturday at noon on the Watch Dawgs with our Black Media Network. Glad to be with you all, and we hope that you are watching and sharing and sharing and sharing. I don't know where my co host is today. I know he's out doing some great work, getting in good trouble. Well, it might not be good trouble, but I know he's out putting up some signs for some folks who's running for office, and so I don't know. Maybe he'll join by phone. We also have a guest that may join us, Dr. Jamal Toure, the great Jamal Toure of all things, the mascot, the icon of all things relevant media. But this morning, I've been on the network now for about, I want to say close to a year, if not very shy of that. And so, really excited to celebrate that today. Another shout out today, we have a birthday in the family. I think I shared with you all my little cousin Michi, who had a birthday back in October. Well, his mother, some of you all may know her as Smiley, is celebrating a birthday this week, and so we just want to give her a shout out for her birthday. And if you see her, give her $20. It costs, like Julius would say, it costs keeps the light on. It costs keeps to keep the lights on. Excuse me. So things are going up. So inflation is big. $5 don't do it anymore. $20 is the pop. So if you see her, give her a dollar or two. But this morning, let's get started. We have a great guest today. You might not know him. His name is William Bryant, my dad. And so one of the things I want to do is bring him on and talk about a historical view of Savannah. Right now we see council and a lot of things going on in the city, but a lot of us don't really know about a lot of the history that goes back in the city. And so, he grew up on a street called Missouri Avenue, and we'll start there in a moment. But a lot of us don't know about Missouri Avenue. I think it's important that we kind of take a step back and look at some of those pieces because, if we don't know our history, we tend to forget it. And a lot of times our young people don't get an opportunity to hear history. So we'll just kind of dive into that for about an hour today. And you see he's wearing his Savannah State University hat. All of the family attended and went to Savannah State University, including his brother, Crawford Bryant, and my mother, Odessa Bryant. And so, I broke the trend. I had to go to Statesboro. If you know anything about me, I like to live in the autonomy of life, which sometimes is good, sometimes is not. But anyway, we'll get started and let him kind of tell us a little bit about. So tell us about when Missouri Avenue, how you and Crawford grew up on Missouri Avenue. Talk a little bit about that. You go anywhere you.
Missouri Avenue was a little knit community. Everybody knew each other. Everybody was in and out of each other's houses. The children grew up in the neighborhood with all the adults helping to raise them. That story about it takes a village to raise a individual goes back to Missouri Avenue and all the other things that concern with Missouri Avenue. We used to eat in each other's house, look out for each other's children, spank each other's children, and everything else that went along with it. But Savannah, but Missouri Avenue was the neighborhood for that area over there between Waters Avenue and Live Street, ran from to Bolton Street, a one street neighborhood with 16 houses on it. And we enjoyed the company.
No, oh yeah, you keep going with it all as far as you want to, and it was just you and Crawford, and back then, a lot of the kids now they go run the street if they want to. You couldn't do that back then.
Well, you had one thing you had your chores to do, especially on Saturday. They have clean up the house for Sunday. For Sunday, the house for Christmas or Easter. The kids had their chores to do, and you knew it. Set aside for the movie. We always the movie mostly went to Savannah State. Savannah movie where we kept up with the series. Everybody can come back. We see the series, we can come back and talk about the series like you didn't see it before. But if you missed it, you hear it from the game. But that was a close-knit community, and I missed it. And I missed it for a long, long time. I still miss it. And the people in it. But most of them are gone. They have spent their time here on earth, going to be with God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things too is talking about that's over on the east side for y'all who may not know, but over on the east side. And so they ended up we'll kind of go through back and forth, but they ended up going to Beach High School. And I think wasn't Beach was the only school for black folks, wasn't it?
That was the only high school for people. Junior high, wasn't no such thing as middle school then. I mean, for blacks at least. And it was all Beach College. Everybody went to Beach College.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little more about that.
The Beach College was the school. You had the athletic, great people in athletic, right on down the line. Now, I was not an athlete. I just was there. I was the manager of the team for 1 year under Coach Green. Coach Green was my homeroom teacher in Beach. But Beach was the school. And everybody in the whole area and uh, different cities around Savannah knew about Beach High because it was great and athletic.
So now we're going to take a shift, and if y'all have questions, put them. This is our YouTube and Facebook viewers. Put your questions up. I'll post them. We'll talk through those. But the part that's really important that we don't hear about today, especially generations, I would say from baby boomers on back, is we never lived in segregation like they have lived in segregation. We never lived in depression. We know a recession, but I'm gonna let him talk about the depression and how segregation and all of that has shaped, what we live today.
I've always said, and still say, segregation is one of the worst things in the world, and especially here in Savannah. But Savannah was one of the better places for segregation because they didn't go to the extreme like some smaller cities. But some places in Georgia and around, you had to get off the sidewalk when the other race came by. But you being black, you had to get off the walk and give them the whole sidewalk. It's the same. We bear through it. And our parents never mentioned about segregation. I remember when I was on the bus, I always wanted to sit on that side seat and face the aisle. So this particular time, I decided I'm going to sit on that seat. And so our mom would put the tokens in the box. I went and sat by the little white car on the side seat and looked out at the aisle. And mama just came by and said, grabbed me by the hand and just said, come on, baby, let's go back here. We can see better from back here. You ever said segregation? But just the same, we lived through it and we learned to live through it. And just the same, we try to be a better person. We have to respect the elderly people in particular. And that's my blessing now. I know because I've lived 24 years past what God said in the Bible, 4 and 10. I enjoyed these years, and I expect to live another 24 years. So respect the old people, respect each other. That's one of the main things. We have to try to be happy. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Now, talk a little bit more about the segregation because especially our younger folks, they don't know about being called names or not being able to get certain advantages or back then I know you talk a lot about making a penny and how a penny was a lot.
Yes, I remember. I remember going from Gwinnett and Wheat and Northern Avenue all the way across to B in West Broad Street. When I got back, the lady didn't give me 1 penny. I didn't get anything. You got to thank you though, but they were really appreciative of it. The old folks did. They looked out for you. So later on in the week or so, she'd call me, and I'd go over my head, smiling like I don't know what, and vulgar words being in my mind, what she wanted. And when I got there, though, she surprised me with, yeah, I have a little something for you, a piece of sweet bread or a piece of candy or some little something. They're always looking out for you, trying to give you something. That's why we like the old people, too. They can always give you something because they mostly have something on hand. They bake cakes and cookies and everything else, and they always included you in it. That was appreciative for us.
Okay. So now, what about now we talked about Beach High School and going there. What about the white children? What was the difference between the white children in Savannah and the black children, and as far as having things, money, cars, anything? Because now remember, you heard them talking about walking. There was no cars back then, so you weren't gonna get no car to go to the mall.
One thing is there's no wall more. There were some big schools, I mean, big stores like Sears. Sears was the biggest thing in Savannah at the time. But I don't think the one in Savannah now. You got to cut rate things from Sears. You ordered through the catalog. And that was the thing we did too. Look through the catalog and pick out the things we wanted. You're not going to get them, but you were just looking through it as kids, saying this is mine and this is yours. Or you made fun for yourself. And like we made our own fun and made a lot of our own toys. Like half rubber. I don't know the name of it now. Took a regular rubber ball and cut it in half and you played with it with a broomstick, which Mama really got on us about because you take your broom sometime and cut the handle off, and therefore you had to kind of get another broom because the money was not plentiful. And so that was a good behind it, cut little red behind you would have when she got through with you. Like my brother, he's he became superintendent of science for Savannah, for Chatham County, and he wanted to know what hooky was. Well, he said one day he decided to play hooky. So he played hooky and everybody gonna go out go to class now because you can play with the toys. And so this is man of the neighborhood, he called him up there, big man, big hand. Mama knows where you are. Blah blah blah. He said, and so he said, no, she doesn't. And so he started beating him right there, Chris. And he walked him all the way home. He was mad with the winning because he wasn't going to be no token for him if he had a token. But you didn't have to. His tokens were 25 cents. You didn't have the money. That was Depression day. Real bad, hard time. If people talk about hard times now, they don't know nothing about hard times. So we went on. By the time he got home, Mama, she was going to kill him. She beat him all up under the bed and all. And he'd have a little red behind now if you could see him if he was still here. He believed in school. That was the main thing. Finish school. You got to finish school. Don't play hooky. And so he finally became the head of Chatham County Science. And so with schooling now, I advise all kids to go to school, get the education, and then down in the elementary schools, be sure to get phonics. So you know how to pronounce these words, because I still pronounce PH as Philip instead of Philip. And so get that phonics, because we couldn't go to kindergarten, because it cost 25 cents a week, because they didn't have one for blacks. And so I didn't go, so I didn't get phonics. And the teachers in first grade and second grade, a lot of them didn't even have it, but they were teaching us. But did the best they could and did a pretty good job of it teaching. I appreciate that. I appreciate all my teachers because they were so kind to you and saying you kept you out and everything else. Because I remember in second grade, I didn't know I could do math well. My teacher gave me a nickel. That was a lot of money then. That's a plenty penny, 5 pennies. You go to the store and spend it a penny at a time. We used to wear out the little corner store. But just the same, he looked out for us and they were proud of us when the sales started because I could get math just as easy as I don't know what. It came natural. And that's what I majored finally in math and general science. I had a good child life, real good child life. Made our toys, played with our toys. Our little group got together in the little alleys and the little streets on Missouri Avenue Protected and played. Had good time. Didn't get into trouble hardly.
Let's go back a minute. And he talked about being, and at this time, what we would consider to be associate superintendent for science. Now, mind you, this is a black man, Crawford Bryant. This is my cousin's granddaddy I talked about earlier. So Crawford goes on, a black male. Now, mind you, now he's a little lighter than me, but he went on to become probably would go down as probably one of the first, if not the first, black man to be associate superintendent, as we know it, for science in Savannah. And so I'm assuming that came with some discrimination.
It really did, because I tell you, a lot of them didn't really know whether he was white or black. And so a lot of them was taking him as white, I guess, but he wasn't trying to pass anything that he owned up to his race. And he associated with the race in athletics and as well as the academics. He was a good brother, always looking up for me as a daddy, because I lost my daddy. He passed in 1935. I was just 8 years old. He passed one Thursday, and I became 8 the next Thursday. But we made it. Mama insisted on us going to school. You have to go to school. You can't go out and go to, and be the little delivery boy at one of these corner stores, which helped out now, because my brother eventually had a job after school, and he didn't get up to 9 or 10 o'clock at night after going to school all day, and then 3 o'clock to about 9 or 10 at night. Because they didn't care about we getting education. You wanted you for our service. That's the main thing they wanted, for you to be there, like our poor parents. Some of them, they didn't get the $3 a week, and that's all they had to go. But God looked out for us. We believed in God. And like you said, Savannah, the city was especially
Okay, so we got a guest finally join us, Dr. Jamal Touré. And what's very special about Dad and Dr. Touré is that they share, we all share the fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, but Dad in particular, they know him as Pearl Brother William Bryant. What that Pearl designates is that he is one of the founders for the chapter at Savannah State University. Now, here's another fun fact. His brother, now this is important to Alphas, y'all won't get this, but his brother was actually the first president of the Sphinxman Club at Savannah State. He didn't go on to be in that first group, but Dad did. And so if you want to talk a little bit about that experience, and then we'll let Dr. Touré kind of jump in and y'all can have that conversation. He's right here, by the way. Well, you can see him right here. But talk a little bit about that journey, because you came through with French Jackson, Clifford Hardrick, a number. We just lost the Pearl over at Savannah State. What was this? What's his name? You know what I'm talking about. Um, he loves his dogs. Let me get the dog
Bill,
out.
Bill Jackson.
No, the light skinned brother. He was at nevertheless. So if you talk a little bit about that experience, and then we'll bring Touré in.
well, at first, I didn't know anything about fraternity and things like that. Eventually, my brother pulled all the fellows together to insist on us getting some frat out at Savannah State College. And so he gathered up a group. My brother did amazing. Gathered up the group, and they all insisted on being an alpha. There was the different fraternities and sororities too, and leave the young leaders out. And we finally got our captains at Savannah State College, and that was a good experience, because going through the grades, being in a fraternity. Just the same, we studied hard, had to keep your academics up, because otherwise you'll be punished for not doing so.
All right, Touré, I'm gonna bring you in, and y'all can have a conversation for a minute. But Touré is here, so if you can hear it, I'm turning up so you can hear him. But y'all definitely dialogue, and I'll jump in as much as I can.
Well, first, I'm going to share something with y'all. I was just briefly talking with our senator, who's also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Senator Raphael Warnock. He's in town right now, so I just left him. So again, I was just around a bunch of alpha men just shortly. And so now again, with our Pearl, again, one of our honorable brothers right here, Pearl, again, it's an honor to be here with you. But I just got a question. What was Prince Jackson like? What was Prince Jackson like?
Yeah.
He was a brother. He was one of the pearls, and almost anything he can do for you, he'd do it. You see, we went to school together as well as in the fraternity, and we enjoyed the different pranks fraternities did during that time. Nothing harmful or anything like that. Now. But Prince, he was a fine fellow, real educated, and he believed in getting education, and he believed in extending that education. He went on to be the president of Savannah State College. The highest.
I'm.
Pardon?
I was gonna say, see, our Pearl, he looking out for his LB. He looking out for his LB. He looking out for his line brother. See, we try to get some dirt on Dr. Jackson. We try to get some dirt. You don't want to get that dirt, see?
He want some dirt. He want to know what he did. Behind the scenes. He want to know behind the scenes. He gonna do that.
He was a good brother.
I see what's going on here.
You get that. You don't get that online.
About his LB.
But he also had Clifford Hodrick there too.
Clifford Hodrick. He was the first.
Oh, I know that. I'm just. Yes. I am aware. So that then I guess we'll go back in time and ask a question about brother John Q. Adams. John Q. Adams. What can you share with us about brother John Q. Adams?
No, it might not be, but do you remember him?
Yeah, I remember him. He was a social science teacher, mainly at Savannah State College. He was there when I got there, and that's a long time ago. And he was an RL. He was a preacher of one of the churches around in Savannah. And but Mr. Clemens was our advisor for the fraternity, and he was a good guy too. He came here from teachers came from somewhere else, a few from Savannah, like Clifford and all. And Clifford was a Fort boy, right here in Savannah. He grew up in the Fort, and, right around Savannah, doing the chores the Savannahans did at that time, and a lot of athletics. We played that after school mainly because you had to get those subjects. You had to carry in those that homework. You had homework over every day almost, and a lot of it.
One of the things too, Terrell, that I was thinking about too, and we can step to this piece. That one of the things that the city's thinking about now is that that overpass as you go MLK, that bridge. They're talking about taking that away, and you probably remember when that is that what they call the overflow flower. That's talk about the Frogtown era and Frogtown and all those things that went away as a result of the city. Maybe not the city. I won't put words in people's mouth, but in my perspective, how the city has just taken and made things their own. But talk about Frogtown, all those neighborhoods that no longer exist.
Yeah, because West Broad Street was strictly ours. All they took in putting the projects out there. They did away with most of the businesses on West Broad Street, like the barber shop. I used to go to Charlie's barber shop was on the west side of West Broad Street. He eventually got a piece of property on the south side, so he could still keep his barber shop on West Street. Nothing but blacks mostly down West Broad Street, businesses, and on the Broad. But just the same, we made it. A lot of the business stayed here in Savannah, but they tore the whole area over to make the project over there on the west side of West Broad Street. But they're doing away with that, or have done away with it. One.
And so Teray, what he was talking about, West Broad Street, and you know this more than not, Teray, was where the black business boomed. And then the overpass comes and all these things happen. And now we see just less than a footprint of that there.
And one of the things, go ahead.
Right there. All right, yeah.
And one of the things what occurred, people got upset with me last week when I had said that one nonprofit here, Historic Savannah Foundation, which is supposed to be an advocate with regard to preservation, and I basically called them out with regard to with them not doing anything for our communities, for our neighborhoods. And I then had a conversation with them later on after that. I then shared with them that since 1950, at least since 1958, the black community in Savannah has said preservationists were not looking out for our communities. And I told them, in fact, it was even before that. And so, again, when we look at what's happening with regards to MLK Jr. Boulevard or West Broad Street, that the impact that has hit us, East Broad Street also. And I would like to hear, Pearl Brother, views with regard to East Broad also, with the Melody Theater and all of that over there too, because we've seen a change with regard to East Broad also.
Yes, East Broad, before the Melody Theater was not there. We only had one theater, the Savannah State, theater, where the blacks went. You had the Star Theater and the Dunbar Theater on West Broad Street. But then after World War II, we got the Melody Theater over on the east side. We didn't have anything on the east side of it. We only had to always go west to get to the black properties. But Broad Street, where the big churches are, some of them, and became popular after World War II. World War II brought in a lot of changes because blacks had to sit back in their little corner, so to speak, and stay away from the whites. Segregation, like I said, is one of the worst evils in the world. And so far, I've been able to endure it and to get away from it. But that is education is the main reason. Mama stayed behind us to stay in school. A lot of them are taking the kids out of schools to make that $3 or $6 a week, being delivery boys and being over all day at the little corner store.
Yeah, that. So I guess and one of the things too, talking about Teray, one of the things I say this story a lot of times, and this is the evil of segregation and white supremacy, and the fact that now you heard him mention earlier that his father passed. Well, part of that was because, and I'm gonna let him talk a little more about this, but his father had a job. I don't know. I'm gonna let him tell you this in a minute, but the white man took the job from him, gave it to another white man. The rest is history. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
That was definitely so during that time when everybody was losing the jobs mostly. We had the whites picking up trash in the regular old dump truck. Then they didn't have these vehicles like they have now, especially made for trash. And they had to lift that number 3 wash tub way up over their head and dump it in the dumpster. But just the same, my dad got other jobs, paid one day at the time, maybe 50 cents for that one day. My mother did the same thing, but they had to stay in school. And my dad, he was a couple down at the waterfront. That was a big job down there, and where they kept the barrels closed, and the stencils on the barrels, keeping up with the numbers of the barrels, because everything came by barrels then mostly. Eventually, went into tin, and all the drums now are tin instead of barrels.
Okay.
And so what happened with that? So he goes to work one day, and what happened?
You just told that the job didn't exist anymore, but it exists. but it was a white man's job because jobs were scarce. There weren't any jobs available, and whatever jobs were existing, exist for the white man, and the black man, what they call standing on the corner, waiting for somebody to come by and want a day's work for somebody. Come and clean up the yard or do anything like that. But all that was white. Segregation, like I said, is one of the worst evils in the world. And I lived under it. With Mama, she was a smart person, but real smart. She had 8th grade education, and that was a lot of education during that time. Because she had to be home. She'd work for the white folk, get that 50 cents for that day or something like that, what they call a day's work. And she'd eventually get home for us. Because she had to be home when we got home from school. She insisted when she was taking the job. She had to be home by then. So she might have went earlier and then got off in time for us to be home. So she'd have mostly something for us to eat. And your mother was eating a long pot, what they call the long pot, peas, greens, soup, something that you can't just go in the kitchen and throw the meat in the pan and fry it a little bit and a little gravy and rice. That didn't exist that much. Once in a while, there maybe a Sunday dish like that. But on Sunday, you might have had chicken, but most of the time you didn't. Because chicken was a delicacy thing. You had to buy the whole chicken. You couldn't buy the parts. Some places might have done it because everything was bootleg during that time. What they call bootleg is like cut up the chicken for you and give you the drumstick. And in a family night, everybody wanted the drumstick, the kids. And the other time, most of the time they had more than one kid or 2 kids. And there's only 2 drumsticks. And of course they wanted the whole drumstick. But you appreciate it. And you had chicken on Sunday, if you had chicken. It was a delicacy, and you enjoyed it. You enjoyed your food, period. And Mama, she had a green thumb. We had a big backyard. She used to plant a little of this, and a little of that, and a little of the other. And most of the time, didn't have to go to the store to buy any vegetables because she grew it herself. And therefore, made ends meet, so to speak, like the old folks would say, by not having to pay that nickel for some onions or 10 cents for the bunch of greens or something. But most of the people give you the green because everybody grew green. And especially her, she had the beautiful garden of just about every little thing they want, little things, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And they got along fine by saving money that way. But things were the kind of things that nickels and dimes then. Like I said, going across there with that penny, you're going to get a penny. But just the same, we made it, but you had to stay together and keep yourself in school and up with your schoolwork and going by and seeing how you're doing in school and not trying to bless the teacher out. And the teacher could spank your little fanny just like Mama would. And like Mama, she'd beat you all up under the bed, like I said about my brother when he played that hooky. He beat him all up under the bed, no. But it paid off by him becoming superintendent of science for Chatham County.
Poor brother, I'm gonna let you know you've been saying some things, and I got like 500 questions I need to ask you. I got like 500 of them. And there's like so much stuff. Now I'm like, I'm letting you know I'm having a little problem right now. And and I know when I ask you these questions, you're gonna throw some other stuff at me too. So I had wanted to ask some questions about some other things, but now I got. Do you remember Tin City and Old Fort, the communities of Tin City and Old Fort?
Mm-hmm.
And Tin City.
Tin City. Oh yes, I remember Tin City down.
We ain't talking about Tin City. That's why I'm like, because I gotta say, Robert Bryant, I'm mad with you right now. We need to be recording him. I'm mad with you right now. I'm mad with you
today, but I begged him because I think a comment Craig Butts made this comment earlier. I really want to do an oral history of him and some other folks and get Kareem McMichael and you involved. because we've got to capture this. And one of the most important things I've learned just today was you see these people want to take race out of school. But you see, if you take race out of school, how you eliminate an entire narrative of people that we've got to hear from. You know, we've got to do a better job of presenting these, because a lot of our children today, they would say 50 cents, that's all you got paid for a day, but that's all you got paid for a day. And it wasn't no going to the mall. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah,
You can
you know,
just
I
use
just
your
have to get it
smartphone.
done.
You can use your smartphone like that. You got your smartphone. That's what I'm saying. But go ahead. Let my brother talk about 10 City. Please talk about 10 City, please.
Talk a little bit about 10 City and 04.
10 City was an area to the side of, I think it was given to the black, not given, but allowed to use to dwell on. And so it was down there on Wheaton Street, where the railroad track crosses Wheaton Street. Back in the area up in there, where people just, any little piece of tin they found, or tins off the roof of houses or something like that, they made them a shelter there. They made somewhere to stay, because a lot of times they didn't have the money to pay for rent, because rent might have been $4 a month. And think $4 a month, and therefore, heck, that could go for food or other things, little clothing. And then, because you didn't, and just about, and I said clothing, just about everybody that saw them had on patch clothes. Anytime a hole came in a clothes, they patched it. And not that you had to pay so much for that patch now, like the clothes with holes in the knees and things like that. You pay like the devil for those garments in order to say that you were wearing the style. Wasn't no style thing that you're doing to cover up the bare body. Going to school. Mom, the teacher took over when you got to school. That was her. You were her meat. And she spanked on your fanny like mama would. And you were begging not to tell mama, because mama was going to tear you up, because you in her charge when you were in school. But now the teacher almost afraid to say anything to the children, because before they might count the coat or something like that. You were their child during that time.
So I need to ask a question. Do you remember the mayor of 10 City? Do you remember the mayor?
No, I don't.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I just want to check to
Back,
see.
You got some more record. Go ahead.
back along the railroad track, after it crossed Wheaton Street going towards the river, way back on there was the biscuit company, the one that sold most of the biscuits for service Savannah with the biscuits. And that's where we used to go a lot of times, because they'll throw away after the biscuits were there a long time. It put in the trash, or rather they give it to us when we go after the boxes. The stamp on the boxes outdo the date on it. They give it to us, and so we left. They're full bread biscuits. The same like Dirt's Bakery uptown at Havisham and Old Street. That's where they had the old place. You didn't buy regular bread. I mean, the day's bread or the expired in a few days. No, you must have got leftover bread, a nickel for the local bread. And the dime bread was nickel half price. And we got the cakes. We go by there, go into the movies at Savannah State College. And Savannah College. And you get us the cake, you do a little cake. Have a good time when you get in the middle. But Savannah State, Savannah, uh, where most of us went, they had the sugar. The start segment and the whip had sugar. Most of the time we didn't. We graduated after we got about, got up to where we started carrying the girls to the movies or something. And that's when we started going on Sunday or Monday. That's when the regular picture. Therefore, we went on Friday or Saturday. The people would be serious when we come back and tell each other about it, although we all went to see it at the same time. But still, we had to tell each other, because we went into more detail on it, because a lot of things we didn't see that the picture showed. That's why they say 1,000 pictures worth 1,000 words. You can dig out those things in there that normally you wouldn't hear and listen to it. That's why I pity the people that are blind that can't see. And the pictures, brings out so much more than you normally would see.
So, and really quick, and Terrell, you'll probably appreciate this. Talking with them, the people in Savannah don't realize the name Georgia State College and how it evolved. So, Georgia State College was the precursor to Savannah State University. So, what happened there?
Well, back in the when I was in school, Georgia State College. My brother went to Georgia State College. He had a degree from Georgia State College. But it was competing with the whites, Georgia College, Georgia, University of Georgia, and things like that. So that was too close to the whites. So they were going to change the black name to something else. That's when Savannah State College came in and got away because it was Georgia State Agricultural and Industrial College. That's what it was. Because they believed in the blacks having mostly farmland, do farming. And with their farming, they started bringing in the industrial part too, where the mechanics, things like that. Gradually, whites didn't want us to have it, man. They didn't want you to have education. So many of them didn't, because education wanted you to get better things. And that's what Mama wanted us to get education. She wanted better things for us. And she beat our little family, kept us in school, and worked after school. So that we could accomplish what we did by getting our degree. My brother became superintendent, and I became a teacher. I changed to the post office. We were paying more money or better fringe benefits, like better retirement.
As a matter of fact, Terrell, he actually worked alongside Jay Jones' father, who was also a letter carrier, Johannes Jones. And so it's funny, one day Jay and I were talking, I was like, I think we know each other. So yeah, he worked alongside Mr. Johannes, and so it's just a small world in the city of Savannah. But one of the things you hear him talk a lot about his mother, and that's where I learned, honestly, the example. He would go out there every day to feed his mother, the nurse home, and so now I do the same thing here with my mom and for him to an extent. But the one thing people don't realize is that this woman who he's talking about was also blind and deaf at a certain point. And so you got to realize, as a community, how that impacts and how that then calls on people to do some things different, right? And so our young people need to understand that, a lot of times God puts a calling on your life to do things that you may not think of you got to do, but you got to do, especially when it comes to family and, as you heard, early elder. Things in the Bible I certainly believe in. That's one of the things. What do we do for the least of those? I keep saying it over and over. But I want to let him talk a little bit about somebody he's known for over 70 years, my mom, and I think you got drafted, and tell that story. How you met her, and then you get drafted, and all that stuff happens.
Oh, my mother.
He called her mother too.
At the Melody Theater, that was the newest theater in Savannah for blacks. But they had a string of theaters on Broadway Street for white, but we couldn't dare go in there. Maybe at the quarter or something like that. But just the same, I met her. She was working at the East Side Theater. And I met her, and I kept going back and going back and going. Eventually, we got together. And eventually, oh yeah. So eventually, I got drafted. No, at first, my number was called to come to the service. That was during World War II. In World War II, I asked for the permit to finish high school. So they gave me the permit. And then the next time there was the Vietnam War coming on. And so I I was in college and asked for the permit to finish college. And so they gave me the permit. And then here come the Korean War, which I went in. And but just before that, about a month before that, I got married. I said, let me go ahead and get married before the good girls be gone. And so we got married. And so when they called me up for the Korean War, I went with my chest sticking out, but I'm married. They said, got any children? I said, no. Okay, we'll see you on the air. That's one of the best things happened to me when they drafted me and carried me in the service. Because all I did in the service was did the Korean training, which was similar to Korea, which was a hellhole. And that was in Missouri. And after I finished my service, I thought I was going to Korea because I trained for it. They sent me to France. Of course, they didn't have engineers for the Air Force. You see, one time when I was a little kid, it was the Army Air Force, it was the Army Air Corps. Army Air Force. That's right. It was one branch, all combined, Air Force and Army combined. But they separated. They got so large, and because the Air Force was being predominant by all the bombings and the transferring of men and all that stuff like that. And so I eventually got over in France. And in France, all I did was send me to school. Every time I look around, I'm going to Germany, going to Spain, or going to this place, sending me to school to learn this, to learn the other. And then by the time I got with school, I got back to my France. We were fixing to rotate. I mean, because we already served our time over there. The whole unit was fixing to rotate. And they rotated them back to where they came from. And I came on back to New York. It took me a week and a half to just about declare the base and get out of the service. And so when I got over there first, that on a Sunday, I told them, we're not supposed to be there. We're supposed to go down to Georgia to be discharged. You say, find your bunk. That Friday, they say, you're not supposed to be here. We tried to tell you that. And all I did was get up in the morning, eat breakfast, go look at the TV or a movie. A movie that night. And that's all I did for a whole week until they found out I was supposed to be there. Then eventually I got out of the service and came home. And my wife and my sister-in-law was living together at the time. And we started our life together. She's been a sweet person for 67 years.
Mm-hmm. So now, Teray, I'm gonna turn on. We got about 10 more minutes. I'm gonna let you ask your 500 questions. I know you're driving, but just unmute and just put it out there. You still mute? Oh, there you go.
I'm going to ask a question about J.B. Clemens.
J.B. Clemens.
Mr. Clemens, he was my homeroom teacher. He was my homeroom teacher as well as head of the math department.
Okay, so now I got somebody else. Can you share anything you remember? Ella Fisher.
Ella Fisher.
He was the Fisher. He was the brother. He was a Pearl too.
Oh yeah, I'm asking about his wife. Don't say you.
Right.
Just about his wife.
Ella Fisher. Oh, I thought you said Mr. Fisher because he came through with me.
Right. Yeah, sir. That's why he won the program. Yeah.
All I know is she worked at Savannah State College. That's all I know about her.
Okay, all right, because she was the she was the Tigers basketball coach too. So now I just want to get some more
Right,
information
right.
about that. So yeah, okay, okay,
Well,
and in fact, and she won the first national championships for Savannah State. Her Tigerettes, two of them. Yes, sir. Okay, all right.
right.
So now we'll move on to this right here. I have to ask this question of you. What was it like with regards to I guess I want to say with regards to the NAACP in Savannah in the 1940s. What was that like with Dr. Ralph Mark Gilbert? What was that like?
It was a strong organization in Savannah under Mr. Gilbert. But the main thing, W. Law, he was a student, but he was a strong advocate of the NAACP. And just about most classes or most people were members of the NAACP. And that was the backbone for, for getting us integrated into the system, because everything was white, black, black, white. You always had to, like on the bus, you're supposed to sit at the back. Blacks. Segregation, the most evil thing in the world. I always say something about that, because that's what I believe. It's like now, I don't think myself better than a white person and white and vice versa, but that's the way they wanted you to believe after slavery. You see, they're the ones that caused us to be over here mostly anyway, as a race, by bringing us over by the hundreds for cheap labor, or no labor at all. You didn't get any paid for being a slave. Got bad treatment, beatings and all that. I've seen all kind of pictures of it. Regular movies about how they were treated down in the hold of the ship, bringing them over here. Many died. It's not a nice thing to know about and to see how people can treat one another. Everything is put here in abundance so that you could enjoy it, have a lot of food to eat, a lot of labor, good things to make your clothing and everything out of. If man would only just share it around, that's your main thing, share it around, be kind to one another. And we were taught, especially respect the old people. Because that was the way it was during our time, at least our black race. There wasn't anything to take care of the black, of the old people. It was that the young took care of the old. The young took care of the old. And right people on the right, because for one thing, we must have abundance of families. If in the family, you must have anywhere from 2 on up. And some of them had them every year. They had children every year, and they had a big old army themselves of just one family. But that's the way it was during that time, and you learn to live with it.
So I think we got time for one more inquiry, and we'll close it out. But and then honestly, I say this about Lander Brothers and church family. Feel free to come by and just sit with them sometimes. I was here for 3 years, and now that I'm back out full time working, I'm not here as much as I would like to be. But Terrell, feel free to come by anytime and hang out with them. This is the type of stuff he loves doing. This is the type of stuff we need to capture more of. Because as they take our black voices out of the classroom, we can reinsert them in other ways. And so we'll go ahead and close out with your question.
This one asks about Derek's Inn. Derek's Inn. Derek's Inn.
Derek's Inn.
That was the main place to go for picnics, excursions, anything out 17. I don't know how many miles, about quite a few miles out 17. Derek's Inn, Mr. Derek, he owned the land and thing, and he was right there on a little stream where you can go swimming and have picnic baskets and all around tables around where you can go out for picnics. And we mostly go out in trucks. And Mr. Porter used to be the Iceman for one time. Come and pick up everybody that want to go on the picnic. I mean, cost you a quarter or something like that, about a quarter. You go on the picnic. And you go out there, and he had a big pavilion out there where you can sit and talk and eat and everything else. And the kids or anybody that want to go swimming can go swimming right there in the stream, which was a delightful thing. You look forward to next year. After this year, you'll be looking forward to going the next year on the picnic. But it was getting out of the city for one thing. And because we had a swimming pool, but it was just a regular swimming pool, not like the stream that we could swim in out there at Mr. Derrick's place and eat a big picnic lunch. Of course, you're gonna put that picnic lunch in a shoebox now. You didn't buy no particular box for put the lunch in, but you had mostly had a shoebox, and you saved it, or saving the shoebox all year for that picnic. Because you're mostly going on the picnic because most of the kids were out of school, and most of them didn't work after school except on the weekends or something like that, or the housework. Because everybody had housework. And I know I had to scrub the coach and all that stuff like that. Boys knew just about how to do things just like a girl. But the girls were mainly for the kitchen and having to clean the house.
Mm-hmm. So before we close out, I know this will make you happy. This your niece who celebrates her birthday today, is Smiley. He don't like nicknames, y'all. So Demetra. So she said she's really enjoyed watching you tell your story and shed light on history, on how far we have come, and most importantly, how important education is and always will be. And her granddaddy, your brother, also knew that. And so we talk a lot about Bryant, but that's the one thing about it is that one thing about this household, you're gonna go to school, or you gonna, as he would tell me sometimes, you're gonna wish you had gone. And so for young people, I really want to share this with the young people because two things. One, we see a lot of young people today not understanding wisdom, and that comes in so many ways. But there's a thing to be said about waiting your turn and understanding those who have come before you and honoring that pathway. We talk about Sankofa principles. I'm not going to go into that today. The other part is understanding that if you don't understand how to honor people who come before you, your blessings will be blocked. I ain't God, but I can tell you how that can work. So we got to be very mindful of how we can disagree with folk, and he'll tell you all day we don't too much agree on anything, but when we do, you ain't gonna win. Especially when it comes to mama. So anyway, we appreciate y'all watching today. We'll be back next Saturday. Hopefully we'll have Julius Hall, Teray. I don't know. I don't know what he out there doing today, but we thank you for watching. Teray, definitely feel free to come by anytime. You have an open invitation. You know, if I've ever shared that, you and Jeffrey Johnson and Beta Phi Lambda always have open invitation. So just come by and visit. He will enjoy you. Take him out to lunch. It's for knowledge right here. Well, for knowledge, couldn't be much more blessed than that. So we'll see y'all next Saturday on the Watch Dawgs. We have other shows coming out throughout the week. Definitely go to Facebook, type in All Things Relevant Media, and tune into all the shows. We'll see y'all next Saturday at noon. Take care.